Welcome to our workshop, Overcoming Bias in the Workplace. The purpose of this workshop is to understand different types of bias, the impact of bias, addressing bias, strategies for recognizing bias, and leadership in overcoming bias.
What is bias? Bias in the workplace is the intended or accidental assumption made when hiring candidates, delegating tasks, or comparing employees in other ways. The first topic is understanding different types of biases. In most cases, bias is either conscious or unconscious. Conscious bias is an active, understood, and calculated choice to act in a certain way. With conscious bias, you're aware of the decision you're making and know what's motivating them. Unconscious bias, also called implicit bias, is a behavior, action, or inaction a person performs unconsciously. Unlike conscious bias, people who exhibit unconscious bias have no idea they're acting in a way that favors some people and excludes others. Since it's often unrecognizable to the person demonstrating it, unconscious bias can be very challenging to combat without effective way. Now, we will tackle about 11 different types of bias. Conformity bias, beauty bias, halo effect, horns effect, similarity bias, contrast effect, attribution bias, confirmation bias, affect heuristic, illusory correlation, and intuition bias. The first one is conformity bias. One employee is pressured to agree with others in a group. He might second guess his original thoughts, ideas, or decisions based on feedback from others. In a hiring situation, this can cause the group to overlook someone for the job who may be an excellent fit based on feedback and ideas from others. Next, beauty bias. Many people are biased toward traditional attractive people. Those who meet societal standards of beauty are more likely to get a job, assignment, or promotion than those deemed less attractive. It's important to be aware of this type of bias to avoid it during recruitment or promotion. Next, halo effect. One outstanding quality or accomplishment takes precedence over any negative attributes the person may exhibit. For example, if a candidate went to an exceptional college, that fact may distract you from their lack of clarity when answering interview questions. The horns effect is the inverse of the halo effect. Rather than acknowledging and focusing on a single positive attribute, employer or colleague acknowledge and focus on a single negative characteristic. This one, that detrimental fact or action, colors all other interaction and positive accomplishment the person makes. Similarity bias. Most people unconsciously feel more comfortable around those who share similarity with them. HR officer more likely to hire or select someone for a job assignment or promotion if they look or act like them. Contrast effect. This type of bias is usually happen in the hiring process. People sometimes compare resumes or interviews with the others they experience rather than comparing the person's qualifications and skills to the job description and necessary attributes. Attribution bias. We attribute other people's accomplishments and failures to different factors. If someone succeeds, we assume it's because they got lucky. If they failed, we assume it's because they're unqualified for the job. This bias can have a major impact on performance reviews and other productivity metrics. Confirmation bias. With this type of bias, you assume you're right regardless of the facts. For example, if you're a recruiter and you selected a candidate for interviews, you're likely to think your candidate is better than the others found by other recruiters because you want to confirm what you saw in the candidate's sourcing process. Affect heuristics. This bias causes people to make conclusions based on superficial or unimportant details, like first names or the color of someone's tie, rather than facts and evidence. For example, if you don't like blue and the candidate is wearing a blue shirt, you're less likely to give them a call back. Similarly, if your best friend's name is Scarlett and you interview a candidate with that name, you may unknowingly be attracted towards hiring them. Here, you make connection between unrelated concepts and make assumptions based on those relationships. For example, an employee is always staying late at work, so you have that assumption that she is working hard, but the truth is she's staying without doing anything. Intuition bias. This is the practice of relying on your emotional response rather than facts when making a decision. In some cases, intuition is warranted, but that's rarely true in the workplace. Intuition that a candidate who has an excellent resume and had a great interview but gave the hiring manager an uneasy feeling is often just a sign of unconscious bias.
Our second topic is about the impact of bias in the workplace. Here are some areas where bias imposed a negative impact in the workplace. Employees' morale and engagement. Employees that are unfairly treated decreases their morale and engagement in the workplace. Employees feel disrespected and unvalued. The organization might become an unhealthy work environment where employers establish favoritism and employees' lack of openness to others. They are more likely to do quiet quitting since the company don't value them anymore. Because of these things, employees are more likely to leave the organization, which could result in an increase in employee turnover. Diversity and inclusion. Mistreated employees will likely feel demotivated, disrespected, and unvalued in the organization, which can result in lack of diversity and inclusion in the workplace. Some employers tend to make biased judgment by showing mistreatment behaviors, distrust, and work stress based on their employees' culture, beliefs, values, and backgrounds. It could start conflict and hostility in the organization and jealousy among employees. Instead of having a diverse work environment, it will likely become a homogeneous workplace where ideas and perspectives are not welcome and can lead to inequity and lack of innovation. Innovation and creativity. Employees that are treated unfair and disregarded has a limited opportunity to show their creative and innovative ideas. Employees feel that they are not given an equal opportunity to share their ideas. They become disengaged from their work and less motivated to perform at their best. And because of that, it could hinder them to receive any promotion and career growth opportunities. Organizational reputation. A company that is branded for being biased might suffer a reputational damage, which can lead to degrade their customers' loyalty and decrease in the organization's overall revenue. Employees are not the only victim of bias. It can also affect the reputation of the organization. When an employer makes biased judgment, it can cause a damage to the company's image. No applicants would want to be part of a biased organization. Because of this, it will cause a negative representation to the public.
The next topic is addressing bias in the workplace. The hiring process. Training programs for hiring for the interview to understand not to be biased. Set structured questions before the interview so everyone has the same opportunity. Hiring the best candidate and not hiring people based on interviewers' bias. Use technology to find the right people to interview. This means using AI and automated platforms to select best fitted candidates for interview. Promotion. Have a foundation that all employees know with what is needed to get a promotion. This will create a structure that employees will put goals in place to reach and know what it takes to get a promotion. Regular assessment on work ethic and level, and see if they meet criteria. This will make sure employees are doing what they need to be doing and make sure the right person is getting promotion and not someone whose assessment is lower. Analyze data of pay and promotion and see if there is bias. Doing this will see if there are any trends of bias in pay and promotion. Have policies on if bias is seen in the workplace for anyone. This will create a safe work environment for all employees and to avoid bias. Training. Address bias issues in a workplace. This can be achieved by having ground rules and standards on bias and training employees how not to be biased. And also having diversity in the workplace can help to avoid bias. Equip individuals with strategies. This could be teaching how to recognize your own bias you have towards others and how to prevent bias from influencing decision making. Resources to help them eliminate bias in all aspects of the workplace. Have training programs for staff on bias and having regular assessment on all aspects of hiring, raise, and promotion.
The next topic we'll be covering is strategies for recognizing bias. The first step is recognizing that you have a bias. Pay attention to your thoughts and then identify assumptions that you might have towards other people. You have to investigate your beliefs and assumptions and develop a deeper understanding of what biases you unconsciously hold against people around you. Some questions to ask yourself include, what core beliefs do I hold? How might these beliefs limit or enable me and others? How do I react to people from different backgrounds? And do I hold stereotypes or assumptions about a particular social group? The second step is educating yourself on the bias. Learn about other culture and races and their beliefs and values to develop a deeper understanding of their viewpoints from day to day. Examine biases heard by others and yourself and ask yourself what happened and what could be improved. Listen to your friends and coworkers and analyze if they hold any biases towards other employees and tell them the truth and strategies on how to solve it. Practice and try to implicate better behavior towards all type of bias in and out of the workplace. Third step is to receive constructive criticism from peers. Have conversation with peers to analyze yourself from an alternate perspective and receive constructive feedback about your personalities and actions. Don't get defensive about your thoughts or behaviors and listen to what your peers or coworkers have to say. Approach this situation from a curious and positive aspect and make it a learning situation instead of an interview. Ask lead questions to learn about yourself in a deeper meaning and understand how you unconsciously treat others around you. The final step is to embrace others' perspectives. You have to embrace cultural differences by actively listening to those of different backgrounds, seek culture and knowledge with discussions and research. Participate in diverse groups and learn about other religions and core values, and accept and encourage all sexual orientations in an inclusive environment and treat everyone equally.
The fifth and the last topic for this workshop is leadership in overcoming bias. First is facilitate self-awareness. Unconscious bias is usually kept in the hidden mind. An effective leader can encourage their coworkers to know the effect of their own biases and to understand impact that they may brought with their judgments and actions. Next is avoid making assumptions. Nothing provokes judgment quite as quickly as a situation already laden with judgment. This means that in any situation, there is always a judgment, and it increases when other individuals give their judgments. As a leader, it is his obligation to inform and remind team members to deal the situation with an open mind without presumption about individuals or groups. Third is remember that it's not about you. The importance of focusing on the team collective goals and objectives of the team or organization rather than personal biases or preferences. In this way, leader can have a better communication and can emphasize the growth of his team members. Also can give a better encouragement to let team members to identify issues, recognizing and overcoming bias in the workplace. Fourth is open communication. Communicate empathy and a desire to understand. Having an open communication will lead to the team members to share their opinions and worries. Leaders can develop a cooperative strategy to have an understanding between the team members. Find a way to let team members to be engaged, and by communicating, they can deliver their own thoughts, emotions, and needs. Fifth is leverage behavioral assessments. Assisting the team members in understanding their own personal behavior as well as any unconscious bias. Using a behavioral assessment is one procedure that can minimize the bias and encourages more objective employment and talent development. Employment selection is made possible by the assessment. In this way, it will ensure that both cultural values and behaviors are fit for the role. It also helps to improve the teamwork within the team. Lastly, create an eye-opening experience. Provide a learning environment while keeping safety. Most of the employees engage their own blame while ignoring the problems. Participating in hands-on tasks and activities help the leader to examine and understand everyone's attitude and beliefs. Incorporate the experience with a thoughtful and review to encourage understanding and gain knowledge to solve the problem.
For recap, we were able to discuss the following topics: understanding different types of bias, impact of bias, strategies for recognizing bias, addressing bias, and leadership in overcoming bias in the workplace. Through these topics, we hope you now understand how bias thrives within the organization and its employees' composition and interpersonal dynamics.
make this more fun, we put together a crossword for you guys to play. Click on the link below.